Hi there. On today's episode, I'll be speaking with Michelle. She is an estranged mom, and she'll be letting us know some tools that she's learned to use over the years, and hopefully helping out some of you out there that may be going through this fairly early or for the first time. So we will talk to Michelle here right away. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How about yourself?
Doing all right. Doing all right. It's a little warm here in sunny Florida. I know you guys have a similar issue. So, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself before we start?
No, absolutely. I have 5 children. My husband Paul and I have been married for 33 years,
Wow.
and yeah, the four younger ones are all ours together.
Okay.
And then the older one is his. It's a stepdaughter that we raised. We got custody of her. We got married the day before Thanksgiving and got custody of her the day after Thanksgiving.
Oh my goodness.
So it was pretty quick.
Yeah.
And yeah, her and I had some challenges, and she just had been in not a very good situation. And he started fighting for her before we even met.
Yeah.
It took him quite a while to get her. So um, that was a challenging relationship. And I have not spoken to her for 5 years. So not
Okay.
really. I mean, we stopped by. She lives with her grandma, and we did stop by, and she had some words at me. You know, it's clear that she's very not happy with me. So,
Yeah. Okay. Do you mind asking? Do you mind my asking how old you and your husband are?
no, we're 59. I
Goodness.
keep
Okay.
saying I'm 60, and he's like, "You're not 60 yet." It's like, okay, 59.
Aren't you usually trying to backdate most people? Rather than go
No,
forward.
because I look really good for 60, but
You
for
do.
55, I might not look so good.
Oh, very good. So what, how, I know you touched on it a little bit, but what was home life like when the kids were younger?
We actually were when they were really little, I was a stay-at-home mom. We were very deep in Christianity. Um, and we were very evangelical Christian.
Okay.
That is not where we're at all today, nor have we been for many, many years.
Yeah.
We were taking guidance from my in-laws, my husband's parents, that were very deep into that. And it just felt really bad to me, the whole spare the rod, spoil the child, So I did not like that. That wasn't how I was raised. I was never spanked as a kid. And my parents, I was actually kind of going away from my parents, just like, no, you didn't do it right. And the funny thing, when I met my husband, he had all these rules, and I thought, wow, he's got it all figured out, because I had two rules growing up. It's like, you're going to work and don't lie.
Right.
And so I had to figure everything else out on my own. And so when I met him, I thought, wow, he's got a rule for everything. We still go through that.
That's
Um,
funny.
but it just was, once I started the rule for everything, I did not like that. It felt very oppressive. And I felt like the kids didn't have enough room to really be open. And my mom was coaching me on the backside. She's like, just talk to them and teach them, and don't do everything for them, because there was that piece of it too, where my husband and I feel like we did way too much for them that they could have done for themselves. And I felt like that was a little crippling, actually. So
Well, I tell people that I talk to all the time, and even my wife and I talk about it a lot. There's no like handbook. I feel like if you come out of a place of, and I could be totally wrong, but I feel like if you come out of a place of love, that you're doing the best you can for them, then I mean that's all you can do.
well,
But
and let me back up a little bit, because, when I say the whole spare the rod, spoil the child, we weren't beating them. We weren't, it was, it
yeah,
wasn't like that. There was not mental torment, or, we weren't torturing them.
yeah,
There was no sexual abuse. We had a cool little family. We'd go into restaurants, and other people would pay because our kids would sit and play and they'd just be quiet, they weren't screaming. We just never did that. I was very, like I had one child that would throw fits and he would throw himself down on the floor in front of me and I would just step over him and I just go
Right.
on about my business and didn't give him the attention because, my thinking is if he's doing something negative and I give him attention, I'm
Makes
reinforcing.
sense.
And so,
Yeah.
I don't really get it. It is a new wave right now. So
No, there's a lot of new waves right now for sure, for sure. So do you feel like that the I think you already touched on it, but the religious aspect, had a hand in some of what's going on now or
um,
has been going on?
I really don't know if it did, because on the older kids, we were too strict. We were just too strict.
Yeah,
Now, my
we
younger
were too.
daughter, she works with me. She's just a she's just a joy to be around. She's super responsible. I loan her money. She pays me back. We have fun together. She keeps her word.
Yeah.
So we've done a lot of personal growth, different programs, just kind of on our journey to improve ourselves. And, we believe in personal responsibility. And we did that later on after they were already in their teens. And they don't love personal responsibility, it seems like. So,
Yeah.
um, and they're all great people. I love
Right.
them. I want them in our life. And they're also adults. I mean, it's kind of like I hear people say, my children. And it's like, well, they are my children. They'll always be my children. And yet it's like saying jumbo shrimp. You don't
Right.
say my adult child. It doesn't make sense. And
Right.
that's what I'm trying to get behind, that mentality, because I still see them that way. Still see them as children and, in some ways. And I'm
Right.
working on putting my mind into they're adults now. They get to choose.
They do, and whether we like it or not, and many times we won't, but there's really not much we can do about it when they're grown adults. Some of the decisions that they make or don't make.
Yeah.
So oh, that's a good point. Do you mind sharing some of those programs that you mentioned, like what
Oh,
kinds of
well,
things helped you?
oh my gosh, I've been through so many things.
Just a
Eckhart,
couple.
Eckhart Tolle.
Mm,
We like his stuff. He has a thing that he says that, suffering is optional.
I like Eckhart.
And
Yeah.
when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, why am I choosing to suffer? I don't have to suffer. Like they're gonna, if they're here or they're not here, like I get to decide. And a lot of those things came in handy when our oldest son Philip died. He was 22 and died in a car accident.
That's right. Okay.
And so we really we call it our toolbox. And we have a toolbox full of mental tools and emotional tools.
Yeah.
And that's one of them. Whenever I'm suffering, I have an awareness that I'm suffering. And then I go, oh yeah, I'm doing that, because
Right.
it's the resistance to what is that's causing the suffering. And I can remove the resistance and then there's no suffering. But it really takes a lot of, I don't even know what the word is, awareness, probably, first of all. And
Sure.
then we've done the Sedona method. And the Sedona method, he has a simple formula. And he does a lot of laughing, because we have to laugh at ourselves. We're silly human beings. We're not perfect. We're not going to do it perfect.
Right.
And he does a thing where he says, you ask yourself the question whenever you find out, when first you have to be aware that you're resisting something and you're creating suffering. And then you ask yourself, could I let this go? Or the obvious answer is yes. But sometimes I say, no, I couldn't let it go.
Right.
I want to be mad. I want to suffer.
Right.
And then I laugh at myself. And then the next second question is, okay, once you get to yes on could you let it go, it's would you?
Will you? Yeah.
Yeah, would you let it go? And then I'm like, of course, the obvious answer again is yes. And sometimes in my mind, I say no. But once I get to yes, I say the third question is when. And, sometimes I have to laugh because I realize I'm like, well, next Tuesday, or when they come back, or when they call me, or when they, somebody else has to do something in order to make me right.
Right.
And that doesn't work. So,
Wow. No, those are great tools.
yeah.
They really sound. I mean, I wish I'd had some of those when I was going through, but I didn't. But
Yeah.
so hopefully that'll spark someone. Because yeah, if you can, if you can let it go, obviously that's the best. Even if you plan on doing it, like you said, at a future time, at least you have that. So, and you can work through maybe some of the pain before that, and whatever you need to, and then be able to let it go. It's hard.
Well,
Um,
when our son died, it was very quick. It was in a car accident. He had a
right.
baby that was 14 months old.
Oh,
Um, we had to navigate helping her. He had a girl with him and she also died. So then we got sued because it was a rental car. My husband had rented him the car. So there was like
oh
so
goodness.
much that we went through. Our attorney died in the middle of it. And it's
Wow.
still kind of going on because now we're in a court battle for our granddaughter. She's 11 now.
Right.
And we've been going through years with that. And when he died, I mean, it took me 3 years. I gained 55 pounds. I did not want to live. I did not want to live, but I didn't want to die either. So it was in this
Right.
limbo. And I had all of these tools at that time as well. And it was very challenging because the emotions were so raw for me to even look at it. And there was no absolutely, you know, I don't equate that to this estrangement at all, because the estrangement, I know they're out there, they're living their life, they're having a happy life, or they're not, whatever.
Right.
They have children, they're getting to experience life. And so, whether I'm in it or not, I have always wanted my kids to grow up and be independent of me,
Right.
not dependent on me. And they're not, they're all very independent. And that was what I wanted. The death of Philip, I mean, I remember really at 3 years, I couldn't do it anymore. I mean, I was falling to the ground every day and I would cry until I'd almost throw up, and then I'd get up. And it was like an app. And I think some of the people I've listened to, some of the people on your program, they might be able to
Yeah.
relate to this. You know how you leave an app in your phone and it's open, but you're not using it, but it's draining the battery. It
Oh
was like
wow.
that. I had a grief app that was just open all the time. And
Oh, that's a great analogy.
at 3 years, I remember sitting by the pool and I was like, okay, I have to die because I cannot do this anymore. Like you talked about accidents and injuries.
Yeah.
There's another thing that we went through. It's called the Grief Recovery Handbook. And
Hmm.
it saved us. It saved our marriage because my husband, the day one, he's like, okay, this is what you need to do. And he was trying to tell me, compartmentalize it in your head. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. That's not how I operate. I'm
Right.
very open and transparent. And I'm not you, and you need to back off. And, so then we were like,
I'll
because I
bet.
was like, you need to back off and stop telling me how to grieve. And that was in chapter one. We have a dear friend who's actually a facilitator of that in LA. And she called and she said, I want you to get this book. I'll do it on a Zoom call with you. And she took us through the workshop. And it's like a 12-week workshop.
Wow.
Um, so accidents and injuries is one of the things in that book. And they have a lot of
Right.
people that go through that book with that are going through divorce. They've had, estranged children, all of these kinds of things, because sometimes people think grief is just about losing a child or
Right.
losing a loved one. It doesn't have to be a child, but losing a loved one. And grief happens when we have loss.
Yeah.
Um,
Losses in all different kinds of forms too.
Yeah. And I mean, I went to the doctor. I'd known him for years. He was a real estate client. And he's like, Michelle, what's up with the weight? And I said, my kid died.
Right.
Like, my kid died. He's like, well, yeah, but that's been a couple of years. Let's get you on some antidepressants. And I'm like, absolutely not. I'm not doing that. I am not. This is how I saw it. And I don't have any judgment on anybody that does that because I know
Right.
that a lot of people. I had done it in the past and it made me crazy and I wasn't going to do that again.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not doing that. I'm not depressed. I'm in mourning. And I don't know what the time frame is. Well, my time frame happened to be 3 years.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go too far down this road, but just the comparison of the loss for me, it isn't even in the same realm because I
Right.
knew I would never see him again. I didn't get to say goodbye. He was 22. He had a whole life ahead of him. He had a child. He had, now there was other people missing him. And, it's been 10 years and we still, like, we sat in the pool the other night and started talking about him because it's coming up September 1st is the anniversary.
Oh goodness. Okay.
Yeah. And it's coming up and my husband and I both, we just kind of lost it. But
Yeah.
where I want to leave that is I think can be helpful to some people in this because what I ended up doing was I'm like, I want to die. And then I was like, no, I don't. I can't die. I have other people that depend on me. I have a life. I'm healthy and I'm being selfish. And I really decided that I was having I was being selfish and I had done it for 3 years. It was long enough.
Right.
And so I decided to put it in a box and put it away. And if I want it, it's a place now. If I want to
Right.
visit, it's okay. I can open that box and visit. It doesn't mean I
Exactly.
forget about my son. It doesn't mean he didn't matter. It doesn't mean any of that because there was like a mom thing that it's like, I need to mourn this child, because he was just
Sure.
like the greatest thing since sliced bread.
And any kind of mourning, whether it's like the death of your son, like you mentioned, or whatever, everybody's different. Some people might be able to snap back in a shorter amount of time, and some people might be longer.
Yeah.
So I understand people try to help, and unless they've been through it, just like with estrangement, but unless they've been through it, they just don't really understand
Yeah.
what you're going through. So,
And humans are judging machines. So,
yes, we are. Bad as we try not to be sometimes, it's very
yes.
difficult.
Yeah.
Because grief, even in general, I don't know if you listened to the one, it was a long time ago, the stages of grief, but even with estrangement, you go through this stage and you get by it, like I was saying before, and then you're right back there again later, and then you think, I thought I was done with this, and you're not necessarily. So it just sometimes it rears its head. So I want to thank Michelle for coming on the show today. Please stay tuned for the next episode coming up real soon. I'll have that out for you guys as soon as I can. In the meantime, I will have the link for the description in the description for the book she mentioned and the friend that she mentioned. So take a look at that. Hopefully that's a good resource for you guys. And I hope you have a great day. And please try to remember to live beyond the pain.